All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to do a little something different today. We're not only going to just talk about boxing, we're going to talk about punctuation, right? We're going to talk about punctuation because when you look at Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin, right, you could argue that both men do have some asterisks next to their name in regards to some decisions, some accomplishments, some claims, right? And we can go back and forth all day about opinions here, which is what we do. It's part of the course, right? That's why we're here. We talk about boxing, and I give my opinion. You guys give your opinion. We can agree. We can disagree. But one thing that it's hard to disagree on is there are some asterisks next to both guys' names, and because of those asterisks, in this third fight, it's going to bring upon some questions. So this is a fight of not only asterisks, obviously, this is a fight of questions, question marks, so to speak, right? And a lot of fights have questions that need to be answered of both combatants in the ring, right? So let's talk about some of the asterisks, right? Canelo Alvarez, his first title fight was against basically a junior welterweight in Matthew Hatton, and it wasn't even at the 154-pound limit. It was at 150-pound catch weight. So right then and there, that win, you could argue, may have an asterisk next to it. People will look back at that and say, well, it was for a vacant title against a guy who wasn't even really a real junior middleweight, let alone a real welterweight, right? So that can have an asterisk next to it, right? And then there were some other fights in Canelo's career. I think early on there was a fight where he had a draw, and I forget who the guy's name was, but I have to go back and look at that. But that's an asterisk because that was a disputed draw, right? And that could have really gone either way. But he got the decision in a fight that some people thought he lost, right? Also, when you look at the Austin Trout fight, I had the fight a draw. I thought the fight was razor close. You can argue that Canelo won the fight. Most people, a good amount of people did think Canelo won the fight, but they thought the fight was competitive. Regardless of the decision, the scorecards were atrocious. They were wide. They made it look like Canelo blew Austin Trout out the water. But from my vantage point and many other people's vantage point, he did not. And then you go to the Irislandi Lara fight, where a lot of people thought that he lost that fight. Once again, there's another controversial scorecard there indicating that Canelo blew Irislandi Lara out of the water. And that was a competitive fight, which I thought Irislandi Lara won the fight. And a lot of other people believe he won the fight too. So that's that. And then you look at the Mayweather fight, where he clearly got dismantled in that fight, taken apart, and one judge has the gall to say the fight was a draw. Then the Golovkin fights, just about, I'd say 99.9% of the people thought he lost the first fight, and there's a good amount of people that thought he lost the second fight too. A lot of people had the fight a draw, but once again, both fights he gets the nod again, right? Then, he goes on to continue his career. And a lot of these fights that he's been fighting, even, the Miguel Cotto fight, I had it 115 and 113 for Canelo, another close fight. Clearly won the fight, though. I don't think you can make an argument Cotto won the fight. Daniel Jacobs, I actually had that fight a draw, but all three judges scored at 115 and 113. So he basically got off to a decent start, but as customarily throughout his career, he tended to fade down the stretch. And you know, the fight was more competitive than it probably should have been, given the fact that he got off to such a great start and won a lot of early rounds. But he seemed to have let Jacobs back in the fight, or maybe Jacobs forced the action. But it appeared that Canelo once again took his foot off the gas pedal, looked a little tired in that fight. He's looked tired in a lot of his fights, right? And even in the second Golovkin fight, after testing positive for clenbuterol, right? After not having the greatest performance in the first fight, going into the second fight, he had the 6 month suspension, slap on the wrist. Most guys take 6 months off anyways. You can argue whether or not it was because of the meat, this, that, and the third. I suspect strongly that he took the substance because to help him with his stamina issues. But that's my opinion. I can't prove it. But it is circumstantial evidence. So again, we can go back and forth. Who did what? If you're a Canelo fan, then you're going to say he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But the question is, the Jacobs fight wasn't close in your opinion? Well, all three judges scored the fight 115 and 113. And let's take a look at the punch stats. They're not the end all be all, but let's take a look. Jacobs, Canelo, punch stats. Just curious to see what these are. All three judges scored the fight 115 and 113 for Canelo. So if that's not a close fight, I don't know what it was. Okay. So if you look at the final punch stats, Jacobs landed 131 punches. Canelo Alvarez landed 188. Jacobs landed 42 jabs. Canelo landed 68. Power punches. Jacobs landed 89. Alvarez landed 120. But Jacobs threw 649 punches. Canelo Alvarez threw 466. So there's a big disparity in punches thrown. And again, if you look at the rounds in the second half of the fight, you're seeing that Jacobs is basically throwing a ton more punches, and the connect percentage is kind of close here. You know what I mean? So you're looking at the second half of the fight, and you can see that Canelo's output dipped greatly. But that's neither here nor there. You can argue back and forth who won the fight. But once again, it was a close fight, according to the judges. I mean, they had it 115 and 113 all across the board. I think one judge had it 116 and 112, and two judges had it 115 to 113. So it is what it is. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Canelo Alvarez never really dominated and had a clear, impressive victory, like a real impressive victory over a top opponent, like a great opponent. Every time he's been in a fight, he's never really had a decisive win over a great opponent. There's always been a close fight. There's always been, some type of controversial scorecard. And before every Canelo fight, what does someone say? If the fight is close, then the other guy is going to lose and Canelo is going to get the decision if the fight is close. Right? So that's the thing. If we're going to be honest. We can sit there and play the game of whataboutisms, but when you're considered to be the greatest fighter on the planet, and if you look at the sport, basically, and you look at how many fighters there are registered throughout the world, probably 20,000 registered boxers in the world, and you're number one, then of course you're going to be held to a higher standard. We're not going to give you participation trophies just because you tried. you're expected to do. You're not just expected to try, you're expected to do and succeed. Then you got people like Mauricio Sulaiman who still say that Canelo Alvarez is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And you got guys like Canelo himself saying that. So it is what it is. And then people say, well, he's got the best resume in boxing. Well, again, you can argue that, but again, he's been, when you look at all the guys who are on the pound for pound list, he's been a pro the longest. He's gotten the most opportunities, right? Because he got the push from his promoter, and he obviously, to his credit, he was a household name, so he got the fights that he needed to get. So of course that's going to play a factor into it. But did he really win all of those fights? Just because he fought the guys, did he win? Look at Nonito Donaire. He has just as good as resume, in my opinion, of Canelo Alvarez, right? So just because he didn't win all the fights, so Canelo's is better than Nonito Donaire's. And what about Alexander Usyk, right? What about Alexander Usyk, right? This is a guy that had a much tougher run to undisputed than Canelo did, going in people's backyards, being in much more competitive matchups. So if I'm going to argue resumes, my opinion, I think Usyk has a better resume than Canelo Alvarez, based upon the amount of years he's been pro, and based upon the difficulty of his fights and the circumstances of his fights and his accomplishments. He just beat Anthony Joshua in his last fight to win 3 of the heavyweight titles. So why is it like all of a sudden this daring to be great moniker? Before, we had this across the other side of the street. We can't fight these guys because they're on the other side of the street. That was another phrase that was created in today's modern era of boxing by the PBC guys, most notably Errol Spence, right? So now we have this new phrase, daring to be great. I'm going to let you on in a little minute. Let me just get this off, Corey. So basically, now the new thing is daring to be great. It's not about being great. It's just the fact that you tried to be great. We're going to give you a blue ribbon for second place. Whereas before you had to be great. So again, if you're number 1 in the world out of 20,000 registered boxers, then obviously the expectation isn't just for you to try. It's for you to do. It's for you to achieve, right? And even Gennady Golovkin himself saying that he broke Bernard Hopkins' record of middleweight defenses. But the asterisk is he did it with the regular title, not the real title, right? And a lot of people thought Jacobs beat Golovkin. A lot of people thought Sergey Derevyanchenko beat Golovkin. In my opinion, I thought he lost both those fights. So there's asterisks. There's 3 asterisks there. So this is basically the battle of the asterisks, right? In my opinion, that's what this should be called, the battle of the asterisks, because both guys got a lot of question marks. So this whole daring to be great thing, best resume in boxing. Again, a lot of people thought you lost both Golovkin fights. A lot of people thought you lost the friggin' Lara fight. A lot of people thought the Trout fight was a close fight that could have possibly been a draw. All right, but again, before every fight, if the fight's close, right, then Canelo's going to get the decision. Why would you even say that if you're not anticipating a close fight? If you're the best fighter in the world, then why would someone even? When was the last time someone said that about Floyd Mayweather? Oh, if the fight's close and it's controversial, then it's going to go Floyd Mayweather's way. No, Floyd Mayweather just won rounds. Like Canelo Alvarez, if you think about it, he loses a lot of rounds. Floyd never did, right? Floyd at his peak was winning real titles against lineal guys. He wasn't fighting guys 2 weight classes below him for a vacant title at a catchweight. That's the thing, man. That's the thing. So both guys have asterisks next to their name. There's bad blood. Triple G is full of shit. Of course he doesn't like Canelo. Of course this is personal. You don't sit there and have someone call you an asshole standing friggin' 3 feet away from you and all of a sudden thinking, oh, that's not personal. Someone calls me an asshole, it's personal. Corey, go ahead, brother.
What's going on, everybody, man? This is Corey Lee Boxing. Man, B, you hit it on the head, though, man. Shout out to everybody that's out there watching. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're at. It's the morning where I'm at. I'm at Eastern Standard Time. So yeah, man, we're gonna talk Canelo and what we think about him and his resume. And if that's the route you're going, Beebs, I understand where you're going with that. I was one of the ones that said that, Better Beef would have beat him the whole time. I never wavered from that. And the Kovalev fight really showed me that Canelo Alvarez can lose rounds. And and it really opened my eyes like, wow, this guy Kovalev, which mind you, 4 years prior to that, Andre Ward, did what he did against him. And a lot of people said that, Andre Ward and Canelo should have fought. I would have loved to see that fight at a catch weight, or at one of the weight classes that Andre Ward hovered at. And but when I seen that 4 years prior, Kovalev, 4 years after Andre Ward, did what he did to Kovalev, and I've seen that Canelo Alvarez was kind of. He wasn't doing as well as I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to win more rounds. I thought he was going to look more spectacular. But the truth of the matter is he was actually losing rounds, and he was actually not looking as good as we thought he was going to look, but he did get the devastating knockout at the end, so all is fair. We wash each other. It's just one of those things like no harm, no foul. He did what we eventually thought he was going to do, but there was some reminiscence of the Caleb Plant fight as well, and the Kovalev fight. Both of those fights.
Look what's happening in the chat. Sorry to interrupt you. Look what's happening in the chat. People are running interference for Canelo right now. Everyone's running interference for Canelo. Like, what is it about this guy? Why are the standards different for this guy than other people? So you're saying all these things about other fighters, but you're not holding Canelo to the same standard you're holding these other. When did we ever say before Andre Ward fight, if this fight is close, then Andre Ward's going to get? We never had to say that. You know why? Because Andre Ward didn't lose rounds. When this guy fought Caleb Plant, you could argue he lost at least 4 rounds in that fight. The fight was more. I had it 5-5. Like, the guy is a very good fighter. He's just not as great as you're telling me he is, everybody in this chat. He's not Floyd Mayweather level. He's not Manny Pacquiao level. He's not Andre Ward level.
Let's just say this, Beeps. If we take away the A side from Canelo, what are we left with? Honestly, let's be honest here, because the A side saved him in some of those fights. You know what I mean? When he didn't get stoppages, like the Laura fight, like the Trout fight. The Billy Joe Saunders fight, he did what we thought he could do.
Anyone that says I'm hating,
I'm praising Canelo.
Anyone that says I'm hating, the only reason why you're saying I'm hating is because you are loving. You're loving. If you're in love with another man who walked by you in the street that wouldn't recognize you from a fucking lamppost, and you're running interference for a guy, and you're living vicariously through a guy, right? And you're calling other people a hater for stating an opinion, you can't argue. Like, we never had these discussions with other fighters. And you could, if you want to say Ward lost the first Kovalev fight, you have a right to say that. It was a close fight. But what did he do? He ran it right back. I thought he won like at least 5 of the last 6 rounds of the fight. You can argue 4. I mean, to sit there and say that fight was a clear win for Kovalev, even if that Kovalev, he totally shut down the second half of the fight, or he was shut down by Ward.
And to speak on that real quick, Beebs, Ward ended all doubt and he stopped Kovalev. Will we see that in the third fight in Canelo versus Triple G? I think that's what me and Beeb is eventually going to get to towards the in a little while in the show. But I think that Canelo Alvarez and Triple G needs to end in the stop, man.
Did you ever, when you, before an Andre Ward fight, before a Floyd Mayweather fight, right? Before friggin' an Usyk fight, before a Terrence Crawford fight, before an Errol Spence fight, right? Do you ever have to say, well, if the fight is close and it goes to the decision, the other guy is going to lose because this guy is going to get a gift on the scorecards? The fact that people are saying that before every Canelo fight, what does that tell you? That's telling you that you're anticipating that the fight could be close, could be controversial, and you're saying to yourself that you could see yourself scoring it for the other guy, right? You never said. Did you ever say that before an Andre Ward fight? Did you ever say that before a Floyd Mayweather fight? Did you ever say that before an Usyk fight? If you picked them to win, you picked them to win.
What's up, fellas? What's going on?
What's up, man? Go ahead.
What's going on, man?
Same old, man. Well, I just wanted I wanted to see. So, are we going by fact? Are we going by our opinion on everything related to Canelo's?
It is.
Like
it is a
body of work
fact.
and stuff like that?
It is one. It is a fact. It is a fact that people, a great majority of people, say before every Canelo fight, if this fight is close, Canelo's going to get the decision.
Okay.
Is that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Have we heard that
before?
multiple times by? You know what's crazy? When you're hearing it, you're even hearing it from commentators who are commentating the fight after the Bivol fight. What did they say? Oh, we think Bivol won, but we don't know if he's going to get the decision. What does that tell you right then and there?
Yeah, I remember they were making that statement before the Bivol fight even happened.
So is that really the mark of a great fighter when automatically the guy's already has an advantage?
I mean, can I use precedent?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so Floyd Mayweather, because I'm a big Floyd Mayweather fan. It was my my generation, for my generation, because I started watching like in the mid '80s, So I seen Floyd from birth to till he ended. So yeah, I remember especially in the latter part of his career, a lot of people, because he was the A side, the money team, the blah blah, all the stuff they used to promote the fighter. If the fight's close, it'll be given to Floyd, among other narratives that they gave.
When was the fight close? Like how many? Here's the thing. It happens too much with Canelo. Has it ever happened more so with another fighter than Canelo?
Mayweather is the only really example I can give, because that's what I heard from.
How many fights?
Because this was like pre-internet, and
how many fights?
Obviously, probably since he beat Arturo Gatti all the way to the end of his career.
Yeah, but what name a controversial fight? I mean, I thought Floyd lost the
fight. I mean, not the Corrales fight, the
Castillo fight.
The Castillo
fight.
I thought he lost the Castillo fight.
That's one of the main.
So did
that's
I.
the ones that stick out to me in Floyd Mayweather.
I thought he lost the Castillo fight.
Other than that, what else?
And even though I don't believe he lost, I actually thought he won, and it was an entertaining fight. The first Maidana fight. That's the one I'm always defending Floyd on.
That fight. You could argue that fight was a draw. You could argue that the fight was
that was a good fight though.
Kind of like Canelo Triple G1, where you can argue. Well, at least I do. I argue that I had it to draw the first Triple G fight, but I thought it was so close that you could give it a Triple G, you could give it a Canelo. I mean, you can make arguments for all three outcomes.
Well, in my opinion, at least the Maidana fight was scored appropriately. You had a 115 and 113 scorecard. You had a 114 and 114 score. Like every Canelo fight, there's one scorecard that has him winning 10 rounds to 2. I mean, it can't be coincidence.
Prime example is the Canelo Alvarez Floyd Mayweather fight. That's prime example. Look at the
scorecard on that. No, he is not. No, he is not doing more than any other fighter in the sport. Usyk is outperforming him right now. What Usyk is doing right now, to me, is more impressive than what Canelo is doing.
I mean, how is that more impressive though? Obviously, I mean,
how is it? Because you went and you're fighting guys, right, who have a chance to beat you. That's when his road to cruiserweight, undisputed was much tougher than Canelo's. Going to people's backyards and fighting guys who actually have a chance of beating him. All right,
I hear you. You do know that Canelo goes to everybody else's backyard every single fight, right?
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't live in the United States.
Yes, he does. He has a home in the United States. That's incorrect.
No, I know, but I mean, he splits his time from Mexico and the United States.
He's a United States-based fighter, brother.
But he lives in Mexico, though. So, he
literally,
this is not his backyard. Like, the United States is not his backyard.
Think about where he's fighting in Texas.
Go ahead, brother.
Think about where he's fighting in Texas and California and Vegas. Who are the majority of the fans in the audience cheering for him? The Hispanic fans cheering for him. He's the house fighter, brother. Simple and plain.
We got to distinguish what's a fighter's backyard, correct? I mean, is it how many fans you have in the stands?
Yes,
or your geographical location.
100%. He's basically a United States-based fighter because the majority of his fights in his career have been in the United States.
Okay, so
and he owns a house in the United States, and the majority of it, he has just as many fights in the United States, fans, excuse me, in the United States than he does in Mexico. Usyk is going into people's backyards. So let me ask you this: what's more impressive to you, Usyk's win over Anthony Joshua in a fight that he's an underdog, 3-1 underdog, going in Joshua's backyard, or Canelo Alvarez beating Caleb Plant, being a 10-1 favorite, once again fighting in Vegas, his home away from home? What's a more impressive win to you?
Obviously the AJ and Usyk, because I don't rate Caleb Plant at all.
So this whole thing about he's doing more than everyone else. No, he's not.
Well, he is, because he went for undisputed. You know,
he's not. Usyk
cleared up 168 pounds. So did Usyk. I mean, you could make an argument that he did better because he beat AJ and he lost to Bivol. But I mean, I would concede that they're probably equal. They're doing equal amounts.
No, they're not. Usyk is doing more because he's winning, and he's fighting.
But by one win, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean,
no. Again, can you even compare his run at undisputed cruiserweight than you can undisputed 168? Now, if Canelo beat David Benavidez at 168, I'd be a hell of a lot more impressed. I'm just being honest.
Was Bellew one of Usyk's opponents?
Not to unification, no.
Not for unification. It was shit. I don't even remember. It's been such a long time.
You're reaching now, bro. You're reaching. You're digging.
No, I'm not reaching. I mean, like, literally, you're trying to make an argument that Canelo, a Mexican fighter.
Now you're trying too hard, bro. You're running interference too hard. No.
It's just like that's why I asked from the beginning.
I mean, come on, Brand. You can't.
I mean, am I going to be able to get my point off, or?
Well, I mean,
it's really up to you. It's your show, Beeps. You know, you're the homie, so you know I like a good debate.
Don't come on here and play victim now, bro. Come on. Don't play victim. I mean, we all have testosterone thrown through our fucking bodies.
Now you gotta pull the victim card there, B.
Don't come online and emasculate yourself. Come on, go ahead. Talk.
Okay. So who's the mediator to decide whose backyard is whose, and what are the requirements? What are the standards?
Let's break it down, brother.
All right.
Who was the A side versus Caleb Plant versus Canelo Alvarez, and who had more fans in the stands?
Canelo.
Okay.
So is that one of the categories? How many fans you have in the stands?
In my opinion, if you want, you could.
No, I'm just saying that we got to establish a baseline, right?
In my opinion, Canelo was the house fighter.
Oh, I know. You established that, but I'm trying to establish what makes you're giving Usyk credit.
Can I ask you a question?
For fighting not in his backyard, away from his home country, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I made the same argument that Canelo literally fights away from his home country every single fight since he's Mexican, fights the United States.
Which is a fact.
Okay.
Can we argue though that he has been adopted by the United States fans and he's a mainstream name in the United States? Can we argue that or no? You even thinking? Why would you even think? That's an automatic.
That's the thing. No, because
you think the fact that you have to think about that makes me a little nervous, skeptical.
Okay, but then we have to determine what's a United States fan. And I know you're going to think I'm nitpicking. It's just
you're trying too hard, bro. You're really.
Canelo has two fan bases: a Mexican American fan base and a Mexican fan base.
He's really not liked as much in Mexico. According to people who live in Mexico that I've talked to before. I've been told he's really not liked as much in Mexico as he is in the United States.
Yes. Coming up for whatever reason, which I'm not going to go into. Yeah, he caught some heat, and there's certain people that thought he was kind of like a manufactured fighter, and some people that didn't know Canelo's the greatest. But at the end of the day, you have to think, you have to put yourself in the mentality of a Mexican fighter. Even though if they don't like him, they still root for him to win every single time, and they still watch his fights.
Well, not according to the fans that I know. I know a lot of Mexicans that root against him.
I understand. I don't know what fans you know, but I'm just coming from the Mexican fan perspective, not the Mexican American fan perspective. Is that the Mexican?
Are you Mexican? Are you Mexican?
I am Mexican American. Yes.
Are you? Can we say that may be that you're biased towards Canelo because you're Mexican? Is that fair to say? Be honest now.
Yes, that's fair to say, but I was trying to put a bit of context to it.
Okay. Were you born in Mexico or were you born in the United States?
No, I was born in the United States.
Okay, so you're a Mexican American. So you're a Mexican American, correct?
Yeah, and I lived in Mexico for about 6-7 years when I was a knucklehead. You know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I was just trying to make trying to distinguish the Mexican American fan between the Mexican fan. You get what I'm saying?
Sure.
They're just they view the sport differently. Like I'll give you a prime example. Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez, he lost, right? There's a lot of Mexican American fans, buddies I know of mine for a lot of years, Mexican Americans that literally threw away Oscar because for whatever reason he didn't give 100% effort. Whereas a Mexican fan born in Mexico, or like me, where I was raised with that mentality of a Mexican-born fan, is that he doesn't matter, the fighter. You don't throw him away because taking the fight against somebody that the fans asked you for, that the people asked you for, has honor in itself. So like literally in Mexico, Oscar Valdez lost, other than losing the fight and other than losing the title, he gained more honor than he did by losing the title. If you kind of get what I'm saying. And it's just it's hard to wrap your head around because like a lot of people think Mexican American and Mexican fan are the same, and they're not.
But we can argue that Canelo is basically a U.S. based fighter at this point.
I mean, yeah, you can make an argument, but I mean, just kind of like how we're having this debate, you can nitpick any fighters. And in this instance, we're debating Canelo, and you know, if he has asterisks as you aptly named your stream.
Well, does he have asterisks next to these some of these wins? Yes or no?
In my personal opinion, no.
None of them.
I would say the one asterisk is that he would have, and you make a good point, is that some of the scorecards given in some of these fights are pretty ludicrous, especially like Floyd Mayweather. I'm sure.
How did you score the first Golovkin fight?
The first Golovkin fight, I had it a draw.
Okay.
The second one, I had 7-5.
So we can make an argument. Well, if we were to take a poll, let's do a poll in the chat. Who won the first Golovkin Canelo fight? Could we make an argument that maybe at least 75 to 80%? I would say maybe 85% of the people would say Golovkin won that fight.
And I would say you have to make a poll. So like if you ask me, should we make a poll? Because
I'm going to make a poll.
I know. But I mean, like just what I hear from a lot of fans is that a lot of fans thought that Canelo lost it. You know, I mean, I would say the majority say that they lost it. But then you also have a section of fans that believe that Canelo won, and then you have a section of fans like me that thought it was a draw. But at the end of the day, that's why I asked when I came on your stream beeps, like, what are we basing this on, fact or opinion? Are we going to give the asterisk for opinion because most people thought that he lost, or are we going to go by the fact that it was a draw?
Here's the thing, sir. Everything is opinion based, but if the general consensus opinion sways a certain way in such a large percentage, does that bear any weight to the opinion? In other words, if 85 or even 75% of the public share an opinion, because I guess all a scorecard is a person's opinion anyways, right? Because a judge is giving his opinion on what he's seeing, right?
Correct.
So is it fair to say that if an overwhelming amount of percentage of people share the same opinion, then that kind of does bear some weight in that in the opinion of that group. Is that fair to say that or no?
I would say it's fair to say that, yes, in the court of public opinion, but like in terms of who won the fight officially, you got to go by the opinion that actually matters, and that's
100%. Do we agree with this ridiculous statement that Usyk has one big win in 3 years?
No.
That's kind of ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Come on.
I mean,
come on. What's his name?
No, Usyk is great, man. He's a great fighter.
Buddy.
So let's see. And then
I ain't gonna cap because I like Canelo or for whatever reason, you know. I just try to go with the facts as best I can.
Yeah. So a lot of this is opinion, but is it a fact that a great amount? Again, you can't say it's a fact. It's your opinion. No one will agree with you, Sean. So no one will agree with you. If you're being honest, no one's going to agree with you. Usyk is a better fighter.
Not only. Let me just say this one Usyk point, you know, and I just gotta throw this in there real quick. Not only was he an underdog in that fight, but you gotta understand the way he beat Anthony Joshua left no fucking doubt in anybody's mind. Anybody's mind. They were pretty much like, soon as they watched that fight, that guy won. And you could be a casual and say that. You know, with Canelo Alvarez, they're like, well, I mean, everybody was, you know, and that's why Bees touched on that point, you know, everybody, because it does matter, you know, where Canelo is fighting at, because some of the, you know, big punches might go Canelo's way, like, but, you know, when Plant was punching them and, you know, punching them in bunches, he wasn't getting the same, you know, love from that same arena. So I think Beeb is just trying to make a point, like, you know, the hometown favorite does get, you know, sometimes gets the decision. You know, most of the time gets the decision. You know, and he was the A side too on a lot of those fights.
Canelo is a U.S. Canelo
is every fight other than the
Canelo is a U.S. Canelo is a U.S. based fighter. He fights the majority of his, like Usyk won every title that he's ever had in a foreign country.
So has Canelo.
Different foreign country.
What do you mean, like the UK?
He's fought in the UK. He's fought in Russia. He's fought in friggin' another fucking Eastern European country.
It's just.
So you give Usyk like a little extra credit for winning certain titles other than the United States.
He's never been the A side in any of his fights.
Not only that, Bees, but you got to understand with the Usyk situation. Usyk was winning to Anthony Joshua's backyard, and it's very hard to get a decision in the UK. Remember, when Earl Spence went over there to fight Kell Brook, a lot of people were saying, is he going to be able to get the decision if it went to rounds? And leading up into that knockdown and those knockouts, you know, when his eye, you know, started giving out, and I mean, it was up in the air, you know. And they said that Kell Brook was winning that fight leading up into that knockdown, and a lot of people think Kell Brook was losing that fight, and that was in the UK.
If you look at all these fights, Jacobs, Kovalev, Smith, Yildirim, Billy Joe Saunders, Plant, and Bivol, Canelo was an overwhelming favorite in every single one of those fights. If you go back and you look at all of Usyk's fights, his road to undisputed, they were virtually 50-50 fights. The Usyk Breedis fight was a 50-50 fight. He was an underdog versus Joshua. His wins have been more impressive in my opinion. Again, it's my opinion. But one thing that is a fact is basically Canelo fighting in arenas where the crowd was overwhelmingly favoring him. Usyk was not. That's a fact. Can we agree on that?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I'll agree with you because, like, I don't know how many. Wait. Let me answer the question. I mean, just let me answer the question or not. I mean, we can move on. We can move on, Beefs, if you don't want to let me answer.
You gotta be honest. I mean,
well, that's what I'm trying to be, but like where you're trying to kind of like cut me off. I mean, like literally, like I said, it's up to you. We can move on if you don't want to let me answer the question.
Again, stop playing the victim. You're a man. You got to.
I'm not playing the victim, brother. Like I said, we can move on. We can move on. We can move on. So,
yes or no?
Like I said, I don't remember like how many Usyk fans were in there, how many Briedis fans were in there, but I could totally tell you that in Canelo's fights, yes, his fans will have been the majority.
So that kind of sets the tone for it's a better environment for him, right? Than it would be for Usyk. So if Usyk's going into the UK and there's 90,000 people there, and 85,000 of them are voting for Anthony Joshua, cheering against him. I mean, it's harder, right? It makes the fight a little harder, doesn't it?
Well, we can. It's debatable.
It's debatable, but
you can't take those guys in the ring with you. At the end of the day, it's Usyk versus whoever he's fighting.
Correct. But it does put added pressure on a fighter going into hostile territory. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So to me, I think that's impressive. And then when you look at the odds of all the fights, when you look at the odds of Usyk's fights, and then you look at the odds of Canelo's fights, like Usyk is basically, he's looked upon as, well, he could possibly lose some of these fights. We don't know who's going to win. Him versus Briedis was a 50-50 fight. Right?
And who determined the 50-50 odds?
The odds makers, the public, right?
The public. Okay. All right.
So when you look at a guy, all right, let me ask you this. So Devin Haney was a minus 150 against Kambosos, right?
Yeah. Okay.
When you look at that fight, who had a better chance of winning, right? Kambosos against Devin Haney or Caleb Plant against Canelo Alvarez?
I would say Kambosos.
Okay. So
I rate Caleb Plant shit. I think he sucks.
Okay. And that's fine. How many rounds did you give Plant in that fight?
Off the top of my head, I think 3.
Okay. I actually had it even up to the point of the stoppage. A lot of people I know gave Plant 4 rounds. So the fight was a lot more competitive than I thought Canelo was going to destroy him. I thought the fight was a lot more competitive than I anticipated, if I'm being honest. And again, you're welcome to disagree with that.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree because I thought he was going to knock him out sooner, but I think I put some money down actually, just like a friendly bet with another guy. But anyways, I think 7th round, that it went to the 11th. That kind of surprised me. But I mean, I didn't see I didn't see Caleb have any success other than he made Canelo miss a bit, and he was effective with the shoulder roll in spots.
Okay. I mean, again, this is opinion, but some of the things I'm saying, like, it is a fact that Canelo's has been a lot. These are going to be factual statements.
Go ahead.
Well, Canelo was a much larger favorite over his opponents than Usyk was over his. That's a fact. I can pull up the odds. Okay. Right?
No, and I believe you. I'll take your word for it. But why would that be the case in your opinion?
In my opinion, I thought Usyk,
why were they so wide for one guy and less wide?
Who do you think's road to undisputed was more difficult, Usyk's or Canelo Alvarez's?
I would say Usyk's.
Okay, so I think 99% of the people would agree with us if they're being honest.
Yeah, if they're being objective,
and the odds reflect that. Whose win was more impressive? Usyk's win over Joshua, or Canelo's win over Plant?
Well, Usyk's win over Joshua. But can I throw in the Kovalev fight?
Yes.
Okay, so I would think they're both equally impressive if you put them head to head.
and you have a right to say that. That's your opinion.
No,
Can we
obviously,
make-
but I mean, like other than the pleasantries, I mean, like, would you agree with that, or would you disagree?
that
That they're equal, in kind of
That's a good point,
impressiveness.
though. Actually,
do I think
Kovalev
that
is pretty. Is
do
a
I
pretty
think
good
Usyk's
fighter.
win over Joshua is equal to Canelo's win over Kovalev?
Correct, like equally impressive, at least.
I honestly don't, because I thought Canelo was going to destroy Kovalev, and I actually picked Joshua to beat Usyk, and Corey can confirm that.
Oh yeah,
So-
I mean, I don't think you're a liar, Beebs. So I mean, like, you don't have to, like, trust me. If you say it, I believe it.
Well, Corey, who did I pick? Who did I pick? I told you. Who did I pick? Joshua or Usyk in the first fight, Corey?
Yeah, man, you surprised me, man.
Who did I pick? Who did I pick?
Music, right?
No, I picked Joshua to beat Usyk in the first fight.
Oh yeah, in the first fight. Yeah, in the first fight, you picked Joshua. Who you picking in the second fight, though?
You know, I'm picking Usyk, but I'm not as confident. But I'm kind of going back and forth with it. But I think Usyk's going to win.
He's playing mind trick with your Beebs.
So the first fight changed your outlook on what you think about Usyk.
I think first fight would change everyone's opinion on that, wouldn't it?
Except if your name's Corey Boxing. I mean, you've been
you
thinking
picked
that
him.
for 4
You picked
years
it from the
now.
beginning.
You've been thinking this for 4 years now. But I mean, I think when you try to compare Usyk and Canelo, man, Usyk is a really, really, really good fighter, man, and he's proven that in the amateur rankings and in the pro rankings. Like some people say, I heard you was on another show like a week ago, Beebs. I was listening to the podcast. The guy was saying that Usyk lost his first, I think 5 out of 10, amateur fights, and then he went on a crazy streak after that. And I did, yeah. And I just think that that says a lot about Usyk, coming into his own, and he's tasted that defeat before, but it's been a long time, man. And he actually tried to win the Olympics twice, and he only won once. So yeah.
These box rec amateur records are kind of crazy, but he lost his. They're showing that he lost. He won his first amateur fight. He lost his next two. Then he won 3 in a row. Then he lost again. They're saying he's 90. These aren't always right, these amateur records, but they're saying he's 95 and 15 as an amateur.
Which is very respectable.
You
right?
know?
And wasn't he a gold medalist or
gold medalist? Yeah.
Right. Whereas in Canelo's case, he had a very short amateur career, and most Mexicans do either through poverty or through corruption in the Olympic committee. That
we have 70% of the people thinking Golovkin won the first fight, and 30% thinking Canelo won. So
there it is. I mean, they're entitled to their opinion, right?
Yeah. So that's
man. I mean, you brought up some good points and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to call it a battle of asterisks, it's funny. It'll probably sell more tickets, because it make people laugh. And
should be the battle of the asterisks, though, isn't it? There's a lot of question marks in this fight, right?
I mean, not maybe for Triple G, but I do rate Triple G. I think he's a decent champion. I think he's a good champion. I actually thought Canelo was going to get knocked out. My initial prediction before YouTube. I even knew boxing YouTube existed. Just me and my dad thought he was biting off more than he could chew. And it didn't happen, so that was a little bit impressive in itself, even though I thought it was a draw.
Who did you think won the first Ward Kovalev fight?
I thought Kovalev eked it, but the thing is that I'll just say that after. It was so close. I mean, if they would, I was not mad that they gave it to Ward. It could have been a draw as well. And also, what I was going to say after that is that I think a lot of people. I don't know. This is just in my head. A lot of people think that close fights, especially especially fights that are huge and maybe have 2 rabid fan bases involved in them. When they're close, a lot of people cry robbery. I mean, that could just be in my head.
I do think both Golovkin and Canelo fights were close. I agree. I think what really pissed everybody off in the first one was that crazy scorecard.
I agree. you know. And I mean, they can cry all they want, like, and maybe they have a point, maybe they don't. I don't know. I mean, I just, like I said, just try to go by the facts. I thought it was a draw. Actually, if they would have given it to Triple G, I wouldn't have been like, "Oh my god, that's a robbery." That's just me. It's just
I'm not gonna
I
lie
used
to
to
you.
do that when I was younger.
I
Not no
scored
more.
it. I scored it for Golovkin at 115 and 113.
And that seems like a very good score. Like literally, if I would have seen that was it a unanimous or was it a split draw?
It was a
Oh,
split
no, it was a
draw.
draw. Just I mean,
It was
it
a
was a
split
split draw, right? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was a split draw.
All right, so 1 and 1. Okay, so I mean, like literally, it sounds like you're on point on your scorecard.
Yeah. Sean, how did you score the first Golovkin Canelo fight boxing with Sean? Curious to see. Then I'll put a poll who won All right, you want me to put the poll for I'll end this poll and I'll put who won. Create this other one. Here we go. Who won the first Ward Kovalev fight? I'll put that up there. We'll see what people say.
Beebs, who do you think won the second Canelo fight? I just don't remember.
I had Golovkin winning both fights, but I have
Both
no
fights.
problem. Yeah, I have no problem. I'm gonna be honest. I'm biased against Canelo's style, in my opinion, because I don't like the low output. You know what I mean? I don't like his style of fighting. I thought with Floyd Mayweather, when he would lay back and try to suck you into traps, he was just more accurate with the counter punches than Canelo was. A lot of times Canelo will set traps. He'll make the guy miss, but he doesn't always make him pay. Like he'll be on the ropes. Like he tries to suck people, he lays on the ropes, tries to suck people in. And he's not really good at countering off the ropes as good as Mayweather was. So Mayweather got you to bite those feints and fall for those traps, where Canelo really isn't as successful as it. So I think he takes like long periods of time in rounds off. I don't think he throws enough. He doesn't really throw a lot of jabs. So in close rounds, I tend to go against him because I don't think he's doing as much as the other guy. Now, if the other guy is throwing more punches and he's not landing, and Canelo is landing even though he's throwing less, then obviously I'll give him the round. But in a round that's on the table, I tend to give it to the guy who's more active. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not biased against Canelo the person. I'm biased against his style because I think he tries to steal rounds. In my opinion,
tries to like do the Sugar Ray Hagler type thing.
Even worse than that. Like at least Sugar Ray was still throwing punches. You know what I mean? He just wasn't, laying on the ropes. Like Canelo takes long periods of time off in rounds, and that's just how I feel.
I hear you. And I think that was kind of like the knock on some of the more Canelo haters.
I screwed this poll up. I gotta redo this poll. I screwed it up.
Redo it.
Yeah, because I put yes or no. I put yes or no. I was supposed to put Ward or Kovalev. I'm sorry.
But I mean, I had it the same way. Go ahead, so you don't like.
Oh, good. I'm listening to you.
I was just gonna say I had it the other way around, but the same score you had. I actually, when I first initially saw the fight, I actually had it like 8 rounds to 4, but then like I rewatched it. I don't know. I think I might have rewatched that fight like 20 times,
but
and it kept getting closer.
The second fight, yeah. The second one was close,
and it kept getting closer to me, and never anything closer than the.
You know what the difference was to me in the second fight? Canelo was more aggressive. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he went forward. It's kind of like what some of the greats say.
Triple G was throwing a ton of jabs, and I thought he was doing a great work with his jab in that fight.
So was I.
And he landed a lot of those jabs.
He did. Like the jab couldn't miss, in my opinion, in that fight. And that's why every rewatch, I'm like, oh shit, this is kind of like some of these jabs I missed in these particular rounds. or whatever, So like, yeah, I like I've settled like that I added 2 rounds to my like initial like watching it live score, which for me is super hard to score a fight when especially it's a big fight, you're invested and you're like, like who the hell has time to sit there like a judge where they're supposed to like literally try to block all distractions, pick a spot and then between the two fighters and try to see, who wins the four, who does more in between the 4 categories, blah blah blah.
So now, if you look at the punch stats in that fight, and again,
Mhm.
this isn't the be all end all, but
Mhm.
they've been getting better a little bit. You can use them maybe as a guideline. Golovkin threw 879 punches. Alvarez actually threw more punches than normal than he usually does. He threw 622. So Golovkin lands 234 punches. Alvarez lands 202 punches. But the big difference here is the jabs. I mean, Golovkin threw 547 jabs, right? And landed 118 of them. Alvarez threw 256 and landed 59. So he landed almost double the jabs. And the punch stats were close. I mean, it was like 143, the power punches, excuse me. Power punches, Alvarez lands 143, Golovkin lands 116. So apparently the judges like the power punches more. So I don't know. I just think that I think Golovkin won the fight with his jab, to be honest with you. I thought his jab was very impressive.
And as did I. I mean, to me, I mean, like shit. I mean, I'll have to rewatch that fight again, but people have been saying that like Devin Haney like literally beat Kambosos just with his jab. I mean, I thought he threw other punches. I thought
he's landing the right hand too. I mean,
yeah, but like sparingly. But I mean, to me, in my head, you can't just win with one punch. Especially per the rules, you can't. But I digress. But at that point, it was impressive. I thought the combination punching was better on Canelo's side. I thought ring generalship, defense was on Canelo's side on the rounds that I gave him. You get what I'm saying?
Listen to this statement.
What's up,
Canelo was the aggressor. I agree with that. He hurt Triple G. He buzzed him. If he buzzed him, I think both guys buzz each other in
vice
both
versa,
fights, right? But listen to this one. He broke him up. I mean, come on, Sean.
I wouldn't say broke him up. Go ahead.
He makes these statements that are just like so off the wall. Like, what do you mean he broke him up? Again, it was another close fight. One judge had it a draw. It was a majority.
I wouldn't say broke him up. I think that is off the wall, but Triple G was pretty lumped up after that fight. But Canelo, had that scar. I don't know if it came from a punch or the cut. Excuse me.
Both guys had like both guys were busted up in the fight. Come on, stop it, Sean.
Yeah, but I would say Triple G like literally was like lumped up.
Are we going to score facial damage now too? Like, is that?
I mean, I don't, but I mean, I'm just like
What is this?
I always play devil's advocate, Beebs. That it bothers me sometimes, but sometimes it works in my favor. I just do that all the time, just to kind of like a full disclosure.
I mean, no one agrees with you, Sean. You just make these statements because you love to disagree. That's what you do. Then you put, here's one statement he made without. He's actually stopping using his explanation points now. So now he's not yelling at me anymore. That tells you someone is landing cleaner. How ignorant is that statement? Can we also make an argument some guys bust up easier than others too? I mean, some guys you can breathe on them and they fucking cut. Again, Sean, stop. You make ridiculous statements.
They're both fair-skinned, so like you see bruises a lot more than
tell him, Ryan. I mean, this guy smokes some of the best pot and fucking money can buy. This guy, Sean. He's like,
I don't think I've ever seen any of his content, but I've seen the name around.
He makes like some of the most outlandish comments ever.
I mean, is this the dude that like I think there's like this Twitter guy that he goes back and forth with, and he makes a lot of like no, that's not him. Oh, okay.
This guy is he's a guy. He never comes on. He never wants to talk. He likes to he likes to use the keyboard a lot. He never comes on. Never calls in. Never debates. He just because he can't make arguments. Sean,
I've seen him one time on H Money's. I wasn't part of the panel, but I could have.
Oh, he's come on before, but he won't.
Oh, okay.
He won't come on a lot. He won't come on anymore now because he can't really debate with me anymore. He He's been taking too many L's now, so he doesn't come on the panel anymore.
I see. Yeah, man. But I mean, shit. You know, like at the end of the day, it's all opinion. Like in the case of like, because it's you know the trilogy is obviously coming in September. Like I've already made like it. This was 4 years ago. I already like made up my mind. Like literally, the fight was so close that I'm not mad at anybody who had Triple G winning them both, even though I disagree. You know, I thought they got it right. It was a draw in the first one. Canelo edged it out in the second. And at the end of the day, I mean, there's nothing anybody could do. They can pout all they want. It's not going to change the outcome of these fights.
I've already told you several times, Sean, I have psychological issues. I'm not a normal person. You want me to be normal, you come into the wrong place. Everybody knows I'm a loudmouth. Everyone knows I'm crazy. I tell people, you know, I'm crazy. You already know that. But
I've seen crazier in these YTBC streets. I did air quotations, by the way.
You know, but one thing is different from me and you, Sean. When I make a comment, I don't put an explanation point at the end of every comment like you do. So what does that mean when you put an explanation point after every comment? That means you're showing emotion.
Why doesn't Sean come on, man?
Every time he comments on my videos, right? He puts an explanation point after every statement he makes. What does that mean? That means you're showing emotion when you're basically that signifies that if you were talking, right, you'd actually be yelling. That's what an explanation point means, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what that means? So how are you going to sit there and say that I'm Mr. Emotional when you're the guy who leaves explanation points after every comment? That's all I'm saying. But hey, what's up, Mike? What's going on, brother?
What up, man? How you guys doing?
Doing good, brother.
Hey, Mo. What's up, bro?
Fucking Celtics. What's going on with the fucking Celtics, brother?
Yeah, man, it's a tough one, but we've been through it enough years to know, I'm used to it. I'm numb at this point, man, to Boston sports, man, just over the years, I've all the losses, but, so I'm kind of numb to it. But, so I was listening to you guys talk about the first fight. Now, that fight, the Triple G Canelo fight, the first time they fought, I've watched that fight probably like 50 to 100 times. And I have this conversation with anyone that I hear who disagrees with me about who won the fight. I'm sorry, I don't know what's your name, Puro Centro. I just wanted to ask you
Puro's fine, Puro.
Puro, okay. Which round, if you remember which rounds you scored, do you remember which round you gave to Canelo in that fight?
Shit. It's
give me a second. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Pro. I gotta go grab my phone because I have all my scorecards on the phone. I'll go grab it.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good, man. Yeah. I actually have my scorecard around here somewhere, man. It was gonna take me forever to look for it. But I think I gave him 1 through 4. And I think I gave him 12. Oh, I mean, excuse me. 1 through 4 and 11 and 12. I think. I'm not sure, but I know I gave him the majority of the rounds I gave him were at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah. That's pretty well. Actually, my scorecard was a little bit different. So I gave him round 1, round 3, and then I gave him 9 and 12. So I had him 4 rounds, but
4 rounds.
The way I do it, there was a swing round in there, so he could have had. I could see him getting 9. I'm sorry, I could see him getting 10, 11, and 12, and possibly 1 and 3, but I can't see how he could get any other rounds than those just based off of what happened in the rounds. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure from what I remember, it was the second round was a clear Triple G round, and then rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 were pretty much all Triple G rounds. Canelo really wasn't active, and then there was a little bit of, and then 9, 10, 11, and 12, Canelo became a little bit more active, but Triple G was like I feel like he was winning the rounds pretty convincingly, except for one, and maybe one or two. That's just the way I saw it. Like, and every time I watch the fight, I'm like, how did this fight not go in Triple G's favor? Because I can't give Canelo more than, like I can give, like every time I watch it, I'm like, I can give Triple G 7 clear rounds that I can say that he definitely won. Go ahead.
I was going to say the big controversy is that round 7, where it was actually Golovkin's best round, and I think Glenn Feldman gave it to Canelo. That was crazy.
Yeah, was that the round he landed the huge?
That was a land, I think. That was the round I think Canelo actually got. I'm not gonna say he got wobbled, but he got buzzed.
Okay,
I don't think
either
fighter,
like Mike was saying.
Yeah, I don't think either fighter was really wobbled, but I think they buzzed each other. One thing Canelo does do well is he does roll shots very well. Give him credit for that. He's good. His defense is pretty good.
Very good. Very good.
I think it's impeccable, to be honest, in my opinion.
I mean, he gets hit sometimes, but he knows how to roll shots, and he doesn't always get hit flush. So maybe that's why a lot of times, maybe opponents don't get credit for hitting him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, he was getting smacked up in the Bibble fight, and he was taking those punches very well. And I think you're right. I think he was rolling them because he was getting hit clean like a couple of times, like 4 or 5 times in a row, just really hitting him. But I think he knows how to roll with the punch to take the sting out of it. So, and he's got his chin is obviously very good as well. But a lot of guys would have gone down from those shots,
And they have.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think. Let me see if I found this card. I gave Canelo I actually gave Canelo the first 2 rounds in that fight, the first one. Then I gave Triple G like rounds 3 through 9. And I thought Canelo actually won the last 3 rounds of the fight. Canelo actually finished the championship rounds very strong, in my opinion.
That's what I remember as well.
Here's where Don Trellis, not Glenn Feldman, I apologize, it was Don Trella. Don Trella scored the fight identical to me, and he scored the fight identical to Dave Moretti, except for the 7th round he gave to Canelo. And there was it was virtually, even Adelaide Bird gave the 7th round to Golovkin, and she had the most ridiculous scorecard, the 118 and 110.
Exactly.
So if that round is scored correctly, in my opinion, then Canelo wins by split. Golovkin wins by split decision.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't watch that round and say, and like they're just like, you look at certain rounds in that fight, and that's one of them. You just can't give it to Canelo, no matter how hard you try to like twist it around. Like it was a Golovkin round. Like Canelo had his rounds, but that just wasn't one of them. You know what I mean?
Let me address this comment.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. What's up, brother? Let me just address this comment real quick, Pearl, and then I'll let you go right back.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with Mike that I could understand.
My fault.
How he had it. Yeah, no worries.
He says you're saying Usyk has done as much as Canelo, even though 6-1 world champs in 3 years. Again, you love putting words in people's mouths. First of all, Canelo has been a pro much longer than Usyk, and he has many more fights as Usyk. So obviously he's going to accomplish more in the longer time frame. What I did say was, I think what Usyk has done, in my opinion, is more impressive than what Canelo has done. That's all I'm saying. Whether you want to quantify, more isn't always better, right? Just because you do more.
Unless it's pussy.
Yeah, that's true.
Excuse my language.
That's fine. Well, you can say that. But that's the thing. I'm not saying Usyk has done more. I'm more impressed with Usyk's accomplishments than I am Canelo's. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, man. 100%, 100% agree with you on that.
And if you want to look at the last 3 years, you can even make a stronger argument that Usyk has done more. What Usyk has done more in the last 3 years is more impressive than Canelo's. Because I'll stand on my opinion that Usyk's road to undisputed was more difficult than Canelo's. I mean, Usyk was in a tournament, and the best fighters in the division were in that tournament. And I think again, this is opinion based, but the odds will show you that Usyk's fights on paper were tougher fights than Canelo's. That's it.
Definitely one. I'll agree with you. Definitely on one is because Caleb Plant is trash. I'm sorry. I'm gonna keep saying that.
Yeah,
I know that kind of kind of takes away a bit from Canelo, but I mean, dude, I mean, damn.
So now he's saying, get your timeline together, buddy. Like, okay. So what are we trying to say here? Let's look at the last 3 years. Okay. So let's look at Usyk, and let's look at his record in the last 3 years.
Hey, Beebs, I got a split, bro.
All right, man. I'll catch you later because I'm going to jump off in a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But
Thanks
good debate, man.
brother. Thanks
and I like how you kind of like put the pressure on me with the "don't be a victim" shit. That shit was hilarious. But thanks for having me on, Mike. Man,
Yeah.
take it easy, bro.
Yeah, salute.
All right, brother.
Salute, man.
All right, brother.
Salute.
So in the last 3 years, so his the last fight in the unification was July, right? July of 2018. So July of 2019, that's 1 year. July of 2020, that's another year. July of 2021. Okay. So I guess that's 4 years ago. So according to Sean, the last 3 years would be the Chaz Witherspoon, Derek Chisora, and then the Anthony Joshua. Okay, first of all, if you look at the amount of fights that he fought in the last 3 years, he's only been fighting once a year in the last 3 years. That's Usyk. So 1, 2, 3. He's only fought 3 times in the last 3 years, right? So let's look at how many times Canelo has fought in the last 3 years. So let's take a look at that. So let's go back to 2019. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's fought in 7 times in the last 3 years. So he's fought in double the fights. So has he done more? Yes. He's fought more fights. Has he won more titles? Yes. But in my opinion, Usyk's win over Anthony Joshua in the last 3 years, in my opinion, is more impressive than any one of those wins on Canelo Alvarez's record. And again, that is not a fact. That is my opinion. Now, the argument can be made based off of accomplishments. They both became undisputed, right? But Usyk was not undisputed in the last 3 years. Canelo was. So the accomplishment of becoming undisputed, that is, you could argue that's a bigger accomplishment, which it is a bigger accomplishment. But I'm looking at the guys he fought to do it. And I'm looking at Usyk's win over Joshua. I thought Canelo was going to destroy every guy he fought. I didn't even think the fights were going to be close. And they were actually, the Plant fight was closer than I thought. I thought he was going to knock out Bivol. So I thought Usyk was going to lose to Joshua. I thought Joshua was going to knock out Usyk. So based off of my opinions, I'm going to be more impressed with Usyk because he did something I didn't expect him to do. Canelo did not live up to my expectations in those last 3 years. Usyk overexceeded my expectations in those last 3 years. Can we make an argument that Usyk's win over Joshua is far and away much more impressive, bigger, and better than any of the Canelo's wins in the last 3 years. Can I make that argument, Mike?
Absolutely. I think that it's the equivalent of, let's say Canelo had actually knocked out Bivol. That's equivalent to Usyk beating Joshua. Like that's how far. I mean, I don't even think
I'll
it's
accept
close.
that.
I don't even think it's.
Even though I
think it's
disagree
close.
with it, Mike. Even though I disagree with it, Mike, because I Canelo was like a 5-1 favorite over Bivol, right? Usyk was like almost a 3-1 underdog against Joshua, right? So again, on paper, in my opinion, the Joshua fight is still a much tougher fight than the Bivol fight was for Canelo. But the argument could be made that if you're looking at accomplishments, obviously Canelo will have the advantage there. But I'm not looking at the accomplishments alone. I'm looking at the difficulty in achieving those accomplishments. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. And if you look at the fights, I mean, if you look at them separately, Canelo doesn't have, I mean, if we're talking about his path to undisputed, let's be honest, it wasn't the most difficult path in the world. Like all the guys that he was able to beat were not the guys that are, that are known for being very hard fights. He didn't have to fight David Benavidez, number one, at 168 pounds. He fought Caleb Plant. He fought Billy Joe Saunders. He fought Caleb Smith. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from his undisputed run, but it wasn't the most impressive thing in the world. Like, we got to be honest about that. Like, it is what it is. Like, he fought who he fought.
Well, listen to this one now. My point from the start, nobody is doing what Canelo is doing right now. That's bullshit. Jermell Charlo just became undisputed. Did he not? Devin Haney just became undisputed. Did he not? So what do you mean nobody's doing what Canelo Alvarez is doing right now?
I don't know about this guy, man. He's just a fan of Canelo, man. He's just not a good
you're
guy.
running interference. And Alexander Usyk was undisputed. And he moved up and he actually beat the guy he wasn't favored to beat. No, not 6 champions. 6 belt holders. 6 belt holders. That's the thing. 2 different weight classes.
And Usyk, not only did he beat Joshua, but he dominated him. He beat him in such a fashion that no one even thinks that there's any point to there being a rematch. And this is a guy who moved up to heavyweight, fought one fight, or was it 2? I don't remember, for 1 or 2 fights, but then went directly.
Size, Mike, you want to talk about size difference? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, okay.
Look how much bigger Joshua is than Usyk is. Is Joshua's size advantage over Usyk greater than Bivol's size advantage over Canelo?
Absolutely.
So again, is Usyk a real people were saying Usyk's not, when he moved up, people were saying he wasn't a real heavyweight.
Yeah, facts.
No, Sean, you're wrong. Because first of all, look at the odds in both of the fights. Charlo and Castaño was a pick'em fight. Haney versus Kambosos was a pick'em fight. He wasn't a 9-1 favorite and a 10-1 favorite and a 5-1 favorite over all the guys he fought. And Kambosos was thought to be, he was the ring champion. He was the man at lightweight, Kambosos, because he beat the man at lightweight. Okay? So Haney beat the real lightweight champion. Charlo beat a real champion. Charlo has the ring title, right? And Haney has the ring title. Okay? That's the thing. No one is going to, okay, Smith was the ring champion. But once again, no one gave him a snowball's chance in hell of beating Canelo. He was a friggin' 8-1 underdog. On paper, the fight was not even thought to be competitive. Look at what Charlo, look who Charlo just beat, and he knocked him out in emphatic fashion. Look what Haney just did. He took Kambosos to school, went in his backyard, was the B-side, made every concession. I'm being honest, Mike. Am I wrong here? It was what Haney did.
No, you're right.
What Haney and Charlo did, and what Usyk did, in my opinion, is much more impressive than what Canelo did, because they were in tougher fights. In my opinion,
if we're talking about Jamel Charlo, it's not even close. Like,
it's not even close.
Like, it's not even close. Like, I mean, I maybe Devin Haney. I don't know, but like, I got my own opinion on that. But Jamel Charlo.
On paper, I did not think that Kambosos had a shot in hell. I expected a one-sided fight, and you can go here and you can say it. But I was in the minority. A lot of people were picking Kambosos. The odds makers had a close to almost a pick'em fight. It was what it was.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I mean, let's see what Smith does. Sean, let's see what Caleb Plant does moving forward. Let's see what fucking Smith does moving forward. Let's see. Let's see if all these wins age well. Let's see. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think Smith beats Bivol. I don't think Smith beats Beterbiev. I don't even think Smith beats Zurdo Ramirez. And I like Smith. But once again, I don't think he's going to be that guy you think he's going to be at 175. I just don't.
No. That's a tough that division right now, man, is probably the toughest division in the whole sport.
If Canelo beats David Benavidez, I will shut my fucking mouth.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'll just shut my mouth. If he beats David Benavidez, I'll shut my mouth. I won't ever criticize him again. Ever. That's a young guy in his prime. You could argue that he hasn't done much, whatever. But again, you look at that guy, you could just tell that guy can fight. He passes the eye test with flying colors, in my opinion.
And he better convincingly beat Triple G this time. Like, no question about it. He better not have another close fight where people are, or he better not. I mean, watch him lose that fight or something, man. I'm telling you, he's just saying he better close the book on this discussion.
How come when David Benavidez was champion, that was around the time Canelo was saying, I don't want to fight other Latino Mexican fighters.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Right?
Absurd.
That's a fact. Did he not say that, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
And why when he was at 154, why was when he was at 160 and Andre had a title in both those weight classes, right? Why did he never fight Andre to try to become undisputed?
Again, it's a good question. There's no real answer. There's no rational answer to it.
Why did he all of a sudden want to become undisputed at 168 when the guys who had titles in that division were favorable style matchups to him, and at 160 there weren't?
Yeah.
Why did he age? Why did Gennady Golovkin have to look bad against Daniel Jacobs before he got the fight with Canelo? Why didn't he get the fight after Canelo beat Cotto in the 155-pound catch weight? And why did Canelo actually let the WBC strip him when the WBC mandated Golovkin to be the mandatory challenger? Why did they wait for Golovkin to look bad against Jacobs first in a fight that arguably a lot of people thought he lost? I had him losing that fight. I don't know how you scored that fight, Mike. Right? Why?
I mean, obviously Canelo wouldn't have been able to beat Golovkin until, back in 2015? I was like, when I started talking about that, he would have lost to Golovkin back then. I mean, I see it as just, in my opinion, it wouldn't even have been close. But they had to wait until they were evenly enough matched so there could be an actual fight. But Golovkin would have beat him, and they knew it.
Caleb Smith just smoked the guy at 175 that Bivol went 12 with. So what does that mean? Beterbiev just smoked a guy who went 12 with friggin' Bivol as well. Bivol's not a knockout guy. He'd rather go 12 rounds with you.
And win like every round.
Joe Smith went 12 rounds with Bivol. He got knocked out in 2 by Beterbiev. What's that mean? What does that mean?
Nothing.
Means zero.
I don't understand the argument, dude. Like, what can we accept? Like,
what does that even mean, bro? Who cares? Who cares about that?
why can't we admit that Canelo? There's a couple of question marks that we can't really answer about this guy, and we brought up all of them. Why can't we be honest about that? We can give the guy his credit, but at the same time be honest about about this shit instead of glossing it over and saying, these are legitimate questions about why did Canelo not do these things. It's just they're good questions.
And I'm sorry. We can go back and forth with this with the circumstances all we want, but he did fail a PED test, and that will follow him around. Once you fail a PED test, no matter what, that will follow you around, right? That will follow you around the rest of your career. Sean, you're wrong. You're wrong, Sean. Canelo has question marks, but nobody else is doing what he's doing. No, that's what they want you to believe. That's the narrative. Devin Haney just did it, right? Charlo just did it, right? And Errol Spence is going to do it against Crawford. All these guys who are doing it against much tougher competition. So it is what it is.
And Usyk did it, man.
And Usyk
did it.
Usyk did it. So what is Canelo doing that hasn't been done before?
And Jamel Charlo.
Why does Canelo get extra credit for doing something other people have done?
Yeah, what he should be doing. Like, he's doing what he should be doing.
Okay,
like,
Sean.
He's supposed to get special credit.
Okay, Sean. 6 champs in 3 years, fighting in 3 weight classes, becoming undisputed in 11 months. Okay, Sean. Okay. That's all true. But who did he fight to do it? That's the question. Who did he fight to do it? Those guys who have done it, Usyk doing it at cruiserweight, fought better guys. Haney fighting Kambosos, fought a better guy under much tougher circumstances, right? And Charlo doing it, fought much tougher guys, in my opinion. Not much tougher guys, but I'm not going to say much tougher guys because the first couple of fights were I think beating Tony Harrison, I think that was a tough fight.
It was.
And I think Castano was a tough fight. I'm just not impressed. Sean,
who was the second guy?
Sean, let me ask you a question, Sean. Was there any doubt in your mind at all that Canelo was going to lose any one of those unification fights? Ask yourself that, Sean.
If you answer yes, then I mean, there's no way. We all knew that he was
no
going
way.
to smoke.
So
he was going to smoke those guys.
The accomplishments will go down in history. You can't take away the accomplishments. But if you're looking at how it was done, right? You can't tell me that. You can tell me if you want to believe that. But I think many people would disagree with you, right? I think many people would disagree with you, right? That these fights were tougher than the Kambosos fight, than the Castano fight, than the Joshua fight. Well, Sean, if you think he would have gotten beaten by Kovalev and you think he would have gotten beaten by Bivol, I'd love to see the prediction video. I think I remember you did say you thought Kovalev would beat him. I do remember you saying that. I'll give you credit for that. Okay. The Bivol fight, I don't remember you saying that Bivol would beat him. Well, will history really look at it differently? What people are going to remember about Devin Haney doing it at 23 years old, right? Doing it at 23 years old, going in someone's backyard, giving up every concession possible. You don't think that's more impressive than what Canelo did? I'm going to say I don't think anyone would disagree with it.
And my question is to Sean is what would you expect from a guy like Usyk? What more would you expect from him? Like if you're saying no one's doing what Canelo's doing, what would you advise that Usyk do? Like what should he do to make you satisfied with him? Like if he's to say that he's on the level of Canelo.
Well, first of all, Billy Joe Saunders wasn't even a real 168 pounder. That's number one, right? And you want to go back and you want to look at Floyd, Trout, and Lara, right? How old was Canelo when he fought Floyd, Trout, and Lara, right? He was
23.
I think he was 24, right?
24.
That's fine. So he lost to Mayweather, got shut out. He had a disputed decision against Lara, right? And the Trout fight was close, right? So that's fine. But Devin Haney goes and fights for an undisputed title at 23 years old, right? Goes and fights for an undisputed title at 23 years old and wins 10 rounds to 2. What's more impressive? You guys want to give this guy credit, right? You guys want to give this guy credit just for trying. And it doesn't work that way. You don't get extra credit for trying. You lost the Floyd fight. You got dominated. Most people thought you lost the Lara fight. And the Trout fight, you won by the skin of your ass, right? So how is that more impressive than Devin Haney at 23 going in there and fighting the number one guy in the division and winning decisively? What's more impressive, Mike?
I mean, when you put it like that, it's going to be Devin Haney every time. But let's not forget, Canelo also had two very disputed. In my opinion, the first fight with Triple G was just a loss. It should be an L on his record. Like any other judges, that Adelaide Bird wasn't there. That's an L. So remember, he wasn't going in there, and when he stepped up and fought good competition, he struggled and even lost. Like we haven't seen Devin Haney do that. We haven't seen Usyk even come close to doing that. So what's Canelo doing that's so much better than everyone else? I don't get that.
You can't compare Canelo's resume. It's an unfair comparison to compare Canelo's resume to guys who haven't been fighting as long as him. Devin Haney you can't compare. All you can do is compare what I'm doing is comparing what they're doing lately. You want to go back in history and you want to go back and you want to dig up these fights from fucking years ago. That's fine. Right? But Devin Haney wasn't even a pro back then. Usyk wasn't even a pro back then. You know what I mean? When did Usyk turn pro? Let's take a look at Usyk. Let's see when he turned pro, the year he turned pro. Usyk turned pro in 2013, right? Canelo turned pro in 2005. When did Devin Haney turn pro? Like why are we even comparing, right, the resumes when Canelo's been fighting longer than everybody? He's been fighting everybody on that pound for pound list. Canelo's been fighting the longest on it. He's had the longest career.
You see what the problem with this argument with is? It's shifted from one thing to another. Because at first we were trying to say, is Canelo's accomplishments like, is anyone else doing what Canelo's done? And now it's shifting to who had a better resume. Like you just keep it as his original statement. Like go back. What was his original statement from the beginning about this that we were disagreeing with? Because like I feel like it's shifted a little bit.
My argument was, he said they're saying no one's doing what Canelo's doing. You have to put that argument in context, right?
Yeah.
Sean says I'm bragging about what Haney did at 23. Yeah, because what Canelo did at 23, in my opinion, look at Haney. Look what Haney did in against Camposis. And you want me to compare that to what fucking Canelo did against Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah, that's not a good comparison. And it's funny because I usually agree with this guy Sean. If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, he makes videos, right? I usually am most of the time share his opinion, but I don't on this one.
Nobody is doing what Canelo is doing. Yes, they are. Like,
they are. They are.
What did Canelo like? The guys are fighting for undisputed titles now. We're getting more.
A lot of guys.
We got an undisputed. We got an undisputed fight with Devin Haney. We got 2 undisputed fights this year already, right?
3 if you count the women.
And we got
the women. We
got 3 undisputed fights this year, right? So I don't want to hear it. Trout wasn't controversial, really? That Trout fight wasn't controversial. I mean, come on. You see the scorecards?
A little bit.
6 champs in 3 years. So what does that mean?
Champ, you got to use the word champ loosely, man. You're going to use Caleb Plant as the champ.
Were they champs or were they belt holders?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Look how Billy Joe Saunders became a champion.
Yeah, did they beat actual champions or did they get gifted the belt?
He beat belt holders.
Let's be honest.
He beat belt holders.
And you know what? Usyk absolutely did not. He beat the lineal. He beat the man who beat the man at heavyweight. You can't take that away from him. Joshua beat Klitschko. This guy schooled Joshua. I mean, that's more impressive than anything Canelo's ever done by far. So I'm sorry. It just is.
Now he's telling me that Kambosos beat a belt holder. Kambosos beat the lineal champion. You can't make a comparison.
No.
Can't.
I don't even know why you try.
Castano arguably beat Jermell Charlo in their fight. Right? You can't make a comparison. You can't make a comparison to the guys. You can't make a comparison to the guys that fucking Devin Haney beat and Jermell Charlo beat to Canelo Alvarez. That's just, it's hard to argue against that.
Well, I mean, you can do it the way he's doing it if you like.
Hey, listen.
I mean,
if that's his opinion, then that's fine. But he has to understand that a lot of people are going to disagree with that. What's more impressive, Devin Haney's win over George Kambosos or Canelo Alvarez's win over Caleb Plant?
I mean, I could see someone making an argument for. Actually, no, I couldn't. In that case, Devin Haney's win is definitely more impressive than that. If you're just looking at those 2 fights, you really can't make a successful argument saying that Canelo's fight was more impressive. You just can't. You can't do it.
So let's make this other argument. Jermell Charlo's win over Brian Castano. Is that more impressive than Canelo's win over Caleb Plant?
Hell, absolutely. He came back and basically avenged what I thought was a loss in the first fight, and he knocked him out.
Is Alexander Usyk's victory over Anthony Joshua more impressive than Canelo Alvarez's victory over Caleb Smith or Billy Joe Saunders?
We don't even need to joke around with that.
That's my argument. Like, just because you're doing like you're saying he's doing something no one else is doing, no, he's really not. He's really not.
Why doesn't he come up here and just talk and instead of being in the chat? Like, I mean, I've seen this guy talk before. He's got no problem talking. Like, well, why don't you come up here and talk about it? But I'll jump down for you.
You know, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Get to the bottom of it, man. Oh, you take my place, man. Come argue your point. I want to see what. So I actually usually agree with you, bro. But I gotta go against you on this one, man. I'm not seeing Canelo.
He has a right.
Light.
He has a right to his opinion. But let me ask you, Sean. Let's just look at the wins themselves. take away the accomplishments. Let's look at the wins themselves, right? Because Devin Haney's undisputed, just like Canelo's undisputed, right? Jermell Charlo was undisputed, just like Canelo's undisputed, right? So who else is undisputed? Who else were we talking about? So Jermell Charlo, Devin Haney, right? But
Yeah, those are the two guys.
Name one victory on Canelo's resume on his path to undisputed, right? Name one victory on his path to undisputed that was more impressive than Devin Haney's victory over George Kambosos, right? Or Jermell Charlo's victory over Brian Castano. Or
yeah, you can't
Alexander Usyk's victory over Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, you just can't do it because Canelo's path to undisputed was very light. If you look at in comparison, you didn't think he was going to lose any of those fights. He was favored heavily in all of them. Well, meanwhile, Devin Haney and Jermell Charlo were pretty much even in their fights.
All right,
and you can't argue it.
Caleb Smith was the Ring Magazine champion. So why was he a minus? He was like a 7-1, 8-1 underdog versus Canelo Alvarez. Why? And why was Charlo versus Castano an even money fight? Right? And Josh Taylor was undisputed. And let me ask you this: was Josh Taylor's win over friggin' Jose Ramirez more impressive than any win over than Canelo had? These were all 50-50 fights. Canelo was not in a 50-50 fight to become undisputed.
Nope, not even close.
The Castano fight was even money, Sean. Stop it. It was a virtual pick'em. It was a virtual pick'em. It was close.
It was a draw the first time. The first fight was a draw that most people thought that Charlo lost. How can you say that wasn't an even fight? Like, how are you going to say that's not an even fight?
Yeah, Josh Taylor is no longer undisputed.
Yeah, I heard that he got stripped.
Now, obviously, Taylor is going to have a better resume than Haney because he's fought longer than him, right? Charlo, I don't know. You can make an argument that he has a better resume than Charlo too, but it is what it is. Right?
I think Charlo's resume is pretty damn good, man. I don't
think Charlo's resume is bad either, but
like he had a tough road, man, to undisputed. Like I thought all three guys that he fought were like I wasn't sure he was going to win any of those fights. Like I wasn't.
Let's go back to this other poll that I had. Oh, so this is close here. Some people thought that for the Ward Kovalev fight, it's like 56% to 44%.
Jesus, I thought that was. I mean, in my opinion, I thought I had it for Kovalev clearly, but I don't know.
Yeah, I had it for Ward. I had it for Ward.
Oh, you had it for Ward?
Yeah, it's close though.
Was it the I guess the work that he did in the
second half of the fight? Yeah, I thought Kovalev didn't do a lot in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, he didn't. But the thing is, what I think that if you take the knockdown away, then I could see Ward. But that for me is what changed it. Like personally, it was a very close fight.
I gave Ward, if I'm being honest, the 5 of the last 6 rounds.
Yeah, it's been a while since I saw that fight, but I remember just the first half of it when Kovalev was dominant, when he was winning. I just remember him winning. Like I remember thinking he won like 4 or 5, or, I don't remember, a number of rounds in a row where Ward seemed like he was tiring and getting worse, but then somehow he brought it back, like he got a second wind. So it was an interesting fight because I just thought that he was gonna get stopped. Like that's the way it was looking at the beginning of the fight, at least.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyways, man, I got to get back to work.
Yeah, I'm gonna
man.
I'm gonna jump off too,
on,
man.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
I'll catch up with you, man. All right, guys. I'm gonna sign off here, man. But I'll talk to y'all later, man. Make sure you check out the Ringside Reporter podcast. Oh, let me read the super chat. I said people don't account for Ward's body work in the last half. Yeah, I agree with that, brother. Let me see if I got did I get your other super chat? I'm sorry. I said Josh Taylor is undisputed regardless of Catterall. Yeah, I get that. All right, guys, make sure you check out the Ringside Reporter podcast tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern time. I will catch up with you guys later. Have a good day, everyone, man, and take care. And peace out, everyone.